This is Michael Mazochi, and you are listening to the Loudini Rock and Roll Circus.
Hey, everyone. Lou Lombardi here, back with you with another interview on the Loudini Rock and Roll Circus. Today I've got Michael Mazochi on the line, great singer-songwriter, has done a lot of cool stuff, a multi-talented, multi-instrumentalist guy. Really excited to talk to Mike, who's got some, he really covers a lot of territory sonically with his songwriting. He's by no means a one-trick pony. Really excited to have him on. Let's get started here. Before we get into the talking to Michael, I want to thank our sponsors, our longtime sponsor, Positively Pittsburgh Live Magazine. That is pplmag.com, Pittsburgh's first internet radio, TV network, online community magazine, and business directory. This is a place to listen to, watch, download, receive emails with the latest audio and video created by members of the community. There's coupons. There's all kind of great stuff. You can advertise your page there. You can subscribe to any page. You can get an RSS feed for any of the great audio or video podcasts that are out there. We're on there, so you definitely want to check it out. That is pplmag.com. Like I said, you are listening to the Loudini Rock and Roll Circus, and if you like these interviews and you like great music that corporate radio just refuses to play, you want to go to LoudiniRockandRollCircus.com. Every Wednesday there's a new interview, and every Saturday there's a new music podcast. And today, speaking of interviews, Michael Mazochi is an eclectic artist who is constantly striving to try new sounds while blending old sounds in new ways. He frequently uses vintage instruments to create vibrant, exciting, and sometimes harrowing music. In the studio, Mazochi often works alone, playing nearly everything on the record, down to mixing the songs. His songs and albums range from folk to country to indie rock to pop to rock and roll. Here we go. His solo work tends towards the more intimate confessions of a singer-songwriter, while his band, the Von Furst, is a revitalization of straight-ahead classic rock and roll. Mazochi's music is a breath of fresh air in today's digital world. Michael, welcome to the Loudini Rock and Roll Circus.
Thanks for having me. How are you?
I'm doing great, man.
Cool.
You're Southern California?
I am in Southern California, yeah.
Cool. So, Michael, how did you get started in music? Let's just start at the beginning and kind of get us up to speed here with how you got started, what you've been doing, and go ahead.
Sure. It was sort of an accident, actually. I was in college in upstate New York, because I'm from New York, and I was attending one of the SUNY schools there, and the winters, obviously, as a lot of people know, are really long, and can't really do much outside for about 6 months out of the year, and so I got this funny notion that at like 19 years old, whereas everyone else I knew that started music started really young, I was going to start doing it. So I just slowly cobbled together little bits of recording equipment, and then, the initial step upon realizing that it sounds bad, you kind of have to try to work with it, and then I just got kind of obsessed with it. Yes, that's
So you got one. So the first thing you wanted to do before playing an instrument or anything was to get recording gear.
Yeah, I actually kind of went at it. I got a guitar basically, and I think I kind of changed my computer into working that way. And I didn't know anyone that did that stuff, so it was very much shooting in the dark.
Oh, wow. So in terms of actually playing, because you do play all the instruments, what did you do? Did you just start kind of feeling your way through, or did you eventually take any kind of lessons from anybody, or have anybody come in and help you out?
No lessons at all. It was very, I guess it was kind of a utilitarian situation where I sort of had to just make everything I had work. And as I started to record more and more, and you kind of get to the point where you're like, well, I'd like to have more than just an acoustic guitar on this song. And I said, I'd like to add a bass. So then I had to start learning how to play bass. And then when it got to drums, that was a whole other, it was a fun headache, And then I kind of one piece at a time just was like, well, I can kind of do all these things. And then the trick is to try to start doing them well.
Who did you like when you first started? Did you have any sort of sound in mind? Did you have artists that you go like, yeah, I'd like to kind of maybe do that, or, anything?
Yeah, for sure. It's probably still a lot of the same stuff. I've become more aware of what's around, in the last handful of years as I've been doing it more and more. But, in the beginning, it was very much Dylan and Neil Young and the Beatles. and the Stones and stuff like that. I kind of just came from that school. My dad was a big Springsteen fan also, so I heard a lot about Bruce Springsteen when I was a kid, and I kind of always thought that was a very romantic notion of this guy coming from Jersey and then going out and playing all these shows and putting on 4-hour concerts and whatnot.
Okay, cool. So, but at some point you get from New York to how do you get to the West Coast? What happens?
Bizarre. It was actually bizarre. I was in my last year of college at the state school, and I started to slowly not attend classes as much as I was supposed to.
Right.
So at the end of the semester, I kind of walked in. Luckily, I was an English major, so I had a little bit of an angle with it. But I kind of walked up to some of my professors after 40 absences, and I was like, I haven't been here, but I did make this album. And so I started to kind of hand it out to people. And then I had a friend who I actually met at a coffee house that I was playing every Wednesday at. And he actually was attending USC at the time, but he took like a year off from school. And he said, kind of on a whim, he said, hey, a buddy of mine is buying a ranch in California after he gets out of college. Do you want to live there? And it was, I mean, I don't know what kind of decision it was, but it was a young man's decision to go, yeah. Sure.
Of course. A ranch in California, sun, a nice weather, hell yeah.
Yeah, it was just very strange. 5 winters in like the Syracuse area, and that's that's enough.
Sure. Oh my God! So you go out there, you move. So you take all your gear, you move into this house, and what? Do you just get right into music right there? How does it happen? And I want to know about the Von Furst, like how that comes about too.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I am if nothing else, kind of obsessive about just keep working has always been my motto about it. I'm not very good at promotion. I've never been good at the other stuff, but the idea of, if you're a musician, you should work. You should play music. You should write music all the time. It should be the only thing that you sort of do, because, I feel like if you don't dedicate yourself 100% to something like that, then at the end of your days, you're going to look back and go, well, I probably could have tried a little harder. So when I moved there, I jumped right into it. I think the day I moved in, I got there at night, and then I unpacked the next day, and then the next day after that, I just started recording an album. And then I immediately after that album did another album.
Wow.
Sort of how I've worked since then.
Just keep cranking them out. So when did the Von Furst, like how does that come together, and what happens there?
The Von Furst was initially, I had a little gap between another band that I was kind of doing for a while called The Widows. That was a bunch of my friends, and I didn't quite know what to do next. And the thing that I sort of did know was that I wanted to do it alone, but I also wanted it to be, I couldn't just go back to the albums before that band and act like it didn't happen.
Okay.
So essentially I kind of sat down to try to come up with a new sound, and I actually spent like almost 3 years on one album, which ended up being Love and Taxidermy. And sort of at the end of it, I said, I'm going to call this a band name because it doesn't feel like a solo album. And then I sort of, I had a manager type fellow named David Greenblatt approach me and just said, hey, I want to see the band. And I said, yeah, the band. Okay. And I just sort of like over the course of the next week called some friends and was like, hey, so we need to have a band. And it needs to be this name, and here's the songs. And then everybody luckily agreed, and we kind of just had at it that way.
I like your approach, man. Just go out and do it, and then, okay, we'll figure it out.
Yeah, honestly, yeah, I always felt I had a few people tell me pretty early on, if you have songs and you write good music, the rest of the stuff should happen. So just approach it that way. And I've always kind of tried to, it's maybe a little naive, but at the same time, I think there's something nice about that and pure about it.
How much, are you writing constantly or pretty much?
Yeah, all the time.
Your MO?
Yeah,
all the time.
Yeah, I have with modern technology, we have, phones that can record voice memos. And when I went to go make this most recent record, I went through 1,000 voice memos. It's like, geez, I need to start finishing some of these and make them into full songs.
Hey, I wanted to ask you, speaking of that, because I do a lot of the same thing too. I got this idea, I got that idea, got it all. How do you get knuckled down to say, okay, no, I'm going to finish something and turn it into an actual full song? Like, what, do you just have a feeling that certain things just kind of jump out and you say, yeah, I like that, or no, I don't like that?
Yeah.
How do you decide
for sure.
what to work on?
I mean, Lou, to a certain extent, Lou, it's blind commitment. It's commitment to an idea and an ideal. I mean, it's, it's like if you decide you're going to take a vacation, you just kind of have to book the flight and go. It's sort of the same thing with songs for me. It's like it's a lot of very quick bursts. I never sit down and labor over one song for, over the course of 6 months, because it'll never happen that way. So I sort of will jot down, here's a verse and a chorus, and then I kind of leave it on my phone, and then a lot of times I forget about it. And then when it comes time and I'm like, I think I have enough songs, I start going through and go like, okay, I'm going to make this one into a full song. I'll make this one into a full song. I'll put these two together. And at that point, it's literally just commit to the idea and then see it through and see where it goes. And sometimes it doesn't work, and sometimes it does. But when it does, it's more fun that way.
Do you have a lot of stuff that never sees the light of day?
Yeah, for sure. There's a lot. I mean, last year I tried to clear out some of that stuff just because there was such a huge gap for a while, because Love and Taxidermy, that first record, took so long, that I was like, geez, I just kept making almost full albums and scrapping them until I got to the sound that I wanted to get to. So last year I put out like 3 records over the course of like a week or two, with no album cover. I wasn't like an official release type thing, but I just sort of decided it would sort of cleanse the vault a little bit to get them out.
Now I watched, there's there's a video on your Reverb Nation page, and you talk about the painting on your CD cover. On your new CD is World in Pieces. Is that the new record?
Well, the album's called The Cold War. So the World in Pieces is the first track off it. Yeah.
I'm sorry. You're right. Okay, the Cold. What's the title of it again?
The Cold War.
The Cold War. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Now, and you said that you painted the cover. Now, so you obviously have some talent. Now, so somehow between all this songwriting, you find time to paint. Now, do you paint other stuff too, or?
Oh God! I mean, honestly, I'm not a very good painter. It's sort of it's a thing that I do that essentially helps me to at least for a minute I can focus on something else. It's a lot of times I'll do it at night. While I was making the album, I kind of I had a routine that I got into over like 3.5 months or so, where I would work for 12 hours, 14 hours, and then I would stop and just make have a beer and sit down and try to like put on a movie on silent, and then I would sit down and just start jotting down ideas about covers and things like that. And eventually I sketched a cover, and then I was like, yeah, that'd be a cool idea. And I thought it was kind of nice that I'd never done that before, to have an actual painting be the cover of an album. So in all its amateur glory, I figured maybe it would be kind of endearing,
It's not. It looks really cool. And it really fits like the vibe and the genre and everything that you do, like really well. So congratulations.
Thank you.
I think it worked out. The title of the album, Cold War, is this sort of is it political, or is that just sort of metaphoric?
Yeah, no, it is. It's certainly in there. It's not. I mean, the Cold War that we already had. I had an idea one day where I was kind of thinking about the fact that we're sort of in a Cold War now. With the way that technology is, and the internet, and there's sort of, I guess, if you had to shorten it, it's like it's political, but it's also sort of the Cold War of the human heart, and the idea that we're all trying to figure out sort of how do we fit into this weird, huge universe that we live in now, that it can be kind of jarring and confusing, and I think it's important to sort of figure out how you fit into it, so you can kind of be okay.
Okay, all right, I got you. In preparation for this today, I Googled you, and you have an IMDb page.
I do.
So tell us a little bit about your work with film, because there's some credits here. Tell us a little bit about like what you've done in that in that realm there.
Well, I mean, it's sort of been 2 different things. I've had 2 different kind of mini adventures with that stuff. One of the 2 is sort of I would have friends who, I'm in near Los Angeles. There's a lot of people making movies, and obviously I'm going to run into filmmakers and become friends with them, and then they'd sort of say, hey, I'm making this 10-minute movie. Would you mind doing a song for it? And I'd say, yeah, sure. Like, that's all I do is songs, so why not? And then the other side has sort of been, it's strange and it's flattering, but it's also very weird. Because I've had a lot of songs on TV shows, which is funny to me because it's not like anyone would really ever know that I had a song on a TV show unless I, posted on social media or something like that. But, it's good. I had to make a list recently, and I think I've had about 64 different placements on TV shows or commercials and things like that, and it just helps pay the bills,
Oh, hell yeah. So is Cold War is it officially out then?
No, I'm thinking early April. It's funny, my girlfriend was arguing with me not to put it out on April Fool's Day, but I thought that would be kind of funny because it's a Friday. I was like, why not? That's sort of emblematic of something. I don't know. It should be April Fool's Day. Sounds great.
Well, it sort of goes with your sort of like just go balls out with life sort of like attitude that you have. You just kind of go and just do it. So why not? I mean, it suits you, I think, to do that. So I hope you do that. Tell us a little bit about the new album, and I know you work alone and you play all the instruments. You probably have some favorite tools that you like to use. Some favorite uses here that you work with some vintage gear. So go ahead for the gearheads out there, and you don't have to divulge any super secret stuff, but
oh no, there's no secrets to it at all.
Okay,
it's a lot of making bad sounds until something sounds good. I mean, I like old pieces of equipment. I think that there's something, I don't know, there's kind of a story. It's nice to me to pick up different guitars, and I have an old Wurlitzer that was given to me by a friend named Josh Oxford, who's a great instrumentalist himself. Things like that, if I can get, my idea has always been if you can get the sound in the room, and it sounds good there, then you don't have to sort of trick the listener into thinking this is some sort of electronic thing. Like, I like to get the sounds in the room, and I think that, there's something to old guitars, and they have little quirks, and there's things wrong with them, and maybe on a certain chord on a guitar, a string buzzes the wrong way, but it creates a different texture, and I think all of that stuff is, it's human. It's important, It's nice to keep that stuff in there, and I think it's relatable. So, I mean, I got an old Gibson acoustic and an old Martin acoustic, and those are the two that I use this stuff I've accumulated over like 10 years though, and it's not like none of it I spent $3,000 on any one thing. It was just sort of like getting lucky as I go, and yeah, I mean, I like that stuff. I just think it's cooler. It's nice to hear the buzz of an amp. I don't think it sounds right if it's too clean,
And so you build the songs. What, you sit down behind the drum kit and you go and you put the bass and you play those scratch tracks. Is that your sort of method?
Yes and no. It's the way that I usually do it. It's going to sound totally insane, but I'm in an apartment and I did the whole record in a living room, and on this record I only had 2 inputs, meaning I could only record 1 or 2 things at a time. So the way that I did all of the drum and percussion stuff was I literally played them one piece at a time. So essentially I'd lay down an acoustic guitar with a scratch vocal or an electric guitar with a scratch vocal, and then I would sort of go in and play the kick drum. And then the next track would have to be the snare drum and then the hi-hat or the ride cymbals. And obviously that makes things like fills very complicated because you sort of have to imagine as you're doing it, like leave a space here for a fill. It's a little insane and mathematical, but it's the only alternative I had short of going into a studio. Because one of the things I decided on this one was I said, I'm not going to spend $1. I'm going to see what happens if I don't spend any money on a record. I don't go into a studio. I don't work with a bunch of people. I mean, I legitimately work with one person on this record. His name is Maxwell Butler, keyboard player. He does a lot of the organ stuff on there. On A World in Pieces, he played the organ. He's great. But other than that, yeah, I just kind of sat there with every song for hours and tried to make it work.
Yeah, that would take hours. You would get real good isolation on the drums, so.
Yeah, the funny thing about that, you have to make sure you don't have too much isolation.
Yeah.
It can be, you don't want to play it too clean because then it's going to sound robotic. So I would try to do stuff because I'm not like looping things. It's essentially like if I'm playing the snare drum with fills, I wanted to actually play it as one whole track. So you really have to sort of plan for it ahead of time. And it's interesting because I think after a long period of time, you get better at playing sort of with yourself on a track. But it takes a lot of time and a lot of albums. And the early ones, when I listen to them now, honestly, some of it just sounds wrong. I wouldn't tell anyone which one it was, because obviously somebody probably likes it, but I hear it and I kind of just go, oh, God, I wish I didn't try to do that, Phil. So, who knows?
That's great, man. Very cool. You're very real. You're very real, just like your music is, man. There's like nothing like pretentious or anything about you. So we're planning on releasing the album, if not April 1st, sometime early in April. And then what is the next 6 to 12 months look like for you? Are you going to do I didn't even ask you. Do you do shows? Do you tour?
I do, yeah. We had the Von Furst play. We did 3 shows last month, all in L.A. But we were doing that for a stretch, and I think at this point I had the first rehearsal with what will be the backing band for this album's song. So I'm sort of going to try to go with 2 different bands. Half of the Von Furst are still going to be in this band because I love those guys, and anyone that would seem to fit stylistically, I just kind of invited them on right away.
Okay, so you're going to are you going to leave California, or are you going to just kind of like keep it local, or?
I mean, I'd love to. It's the complications of touring essentially when you live in a place like LA where everything's just kind of insanely expensive is obviously I may have to go out alone if I get to do that at first, and then maybe bring one person or something like that, because obviously bringing 5 people who all have jobs when you're not making any money is sort of like, hey, you guys willing to get evicted for a month? It's kind of just like I can take that bullet and try to see if I can cobble together enough money to take a month off, but I think asking 5 people to do that's probably tough. So we'll probably do band shows here, and then maybe play outside of here by myself or with one person. Okay.
Well, that's cool. Is there anything else that you'd like the world to know right now about Michael Mazochi?
No, I mean, I guess that's the gist of it. Just check out the music, and if you like it, go to a show, buy an album. I mean, it's good to support the musicians you like, and I think it's interesting. Everything's out there to listen to, but I still am someone who always buys the music and will go to a show if I like it.
You don't. I didn't find an official website for you, but you do have SoundCloud and Bandcamp, correct? Is that the best way for people to check you out?
Yeah, they got SoundCloud, Bandcamp. There's a Reverb Nation. I have a Facebook page, and then the Von Furst have a website. It's just thevonfurst.com.
Okay, and that is Michael Mazochi, Michaelmazoch, for everybody out there. So if you want to find him, and you can find him on Facebook, Reverb Nation, like I said, SoundCloud. And I was looking at the Bandcamp site where you've got looks pretty much like maybe everything you've done. So if everybody,
there's a lot of it,
a lot of stuff is there. Michael, can you hang on? We're going to wrap up, but I'd like to do like a bonus question with you, if you got a second.
Yeah, of course.
All right. Michael Mazochi, everyone, fantastic singer-songwriter you really need to just hear. So just go check him out. You can find him on SoundCloud, like I said, and Bandcamp and Reverb Nation. That way you can really stream the music and hear it there. My name is Lou Lombardi. You're listening to the Loudini Rock and Roll Circus. That's LoudiniRockandRollCircus.com. And one more time for our sponsor, Positively Pittsburgh Live, TPLMag.com. Go check them out, guys. Thanks so much for listening. Don't forget that every Wednesday there's a new interview, and every Saturday there is a new music podcast. So you definitely want to check it out. LoudiniRockandRollCircus.com, and we will see you guys on the next podcast.